I'm Jim, and welcome to the weekly message from Hummelstown United Church of Christ, right here in Hummelstown, Pennsylvania. We're the small church with a big heart, a place where everyone is truly welcome and where all can belong. Whether this is your first time joining us or you're a familiar part of our family, we're glad you're here. To learn more about our community, visit us online at hummelstownucc.org. Now, let's open our hearts and prepare for today's message.
Twice in our service, we've had a list of colors listed for you, and those come from two different versions of our rainbow covenant today that we're connecting through. And so I'm going to have these little packets down here by the dum-dums, lollipops, as well as in the back for our way out, and we'll try and include it in our weekly email later. But here you will find a expanded version of what Carol has read and what we read in our opening, the 7 covenants, covenanting with earth for justice, and then the full language of the Rainbow Christ prayer as we covenant with our humanity as well. So I do invite you to take that with you as well so that we might expand this rainbow beyond this moment. Covenants are all over the Bible and our UCC tradition in particular. We are a people of covenant who are called to live into the better than legal contract, the life of connection and mutual responsibility that's at the heart of both of these readings for this week, and are at the heart of the mission and vision statement of our congregation, and of course, our opening and affirming statement itself. Covenant is critical to an understanding of the Christian call to honor and celebrate pride, to affirm and welcome with honest love all who engage in our community, in person, online, at events, and beyond. This week, we have the honor of celebrating the rainbow as part of our season of creation, too. And so there are many ways to celebrate God's color, the diversity of the ecosystem, the diversity of human love, the diversity of earthly creatures. None of these are negated by each other. Each depends and supports the knowledge of the other. This is the true gift of a rainbow of covenant. There's been a movement in recent years to reclaim the rainbow from the LGBTQIA plus community, to attach it to its Genesis rainbow covenant of God at the end of the flood. This movement relies on an understanding that the point of Noah's flood is to cleanse the world of personal sins. But I don't know that that really is the message to be pulled here. Noah's flood story begins, like many ancient Near East tales of the flood do, trying to make sense of a shocking weather event in a time before meteorology, and attaches to that cause of devastation, and it must be the anger of a divine source. Yet Genesis 9 reads more like a creation do-over than a behavioral consequence. Genesis 1 tells of God's goodness. It was good. We hear over and over in the days of creation, as we heard last week in worship here. It was good, and it is good. And after the waters of the flood have receded and Noah and the animals have come out from the cruise ship, he worships God, creating an altar and offering of those same preserved animals. And given that we just spent the entire rest of the story about God ensuring the continuation of these innocent species when God's going to do this awful thing, the immediate response to kill those sheltered animals so that God can smell the food seems rather odd. I'm not kidding. It seriously is the context of this week's reading. So Noah offers up these animals, and God likes the scent of the food, all of that meat, and so makes this covenant. It continues these Genesis family stories of what you do for some food. cheat your siblings, sell your daughters, save creation. Maybe this text isn't really supporting my thesis here. So let's get back on track. The covenant that God offers to Noah, the entirety of creation after his descendants, is to preserve life. And the main covenantal partner is God. God, who is called to account for their choice. God, who will be reminded not to flood the earth by seeing the rainbow. God, who has established the goodness of the world, and God, who has returned it to righteousness and rightness, and God, who will protect that goodness. So, what of this covenant is the role of humanity? Are we the arbiters of God's justice? God, I hope not, because that is a heavy burden. That power is never offered to humanity here. It remains with God to judge and God to hold steady to their responsibility. The human role as a part of this contract is to live, to multiply and well multiply. Almost every version and translation of our text this morning uses the words multiply, abound, multiply more than once. But that's not how the NRSV UE phrases it. As multiply, yes, that's there. But if you read it back, that first line ends with dominion over it. A controversial phrasing itself that brings us right back to those days of creation that's offered in Genesis 1 and 2, when the first humans were told that the world was theirs and they were told to have dominion over it. Textual study and dialogue on this has spanned generations, on what it means to have dominion over. Does it mean that one can exploit and use to whatever desires come to you? Or does it mean a managed caretaking? A oneness with the earth that the human creature understands the needs for nourishment, develop, and balance that are integral to a long-lasting land management strategy. This, I believe, is more what dominion over means, if we care to see the value of the future, not just the here and the now. We are told in Genesis that humanity was created in God's image, and we are told to have dominion over the planet. And if both of those are true, then our job is to ensure that the thriving of the planet that God does continues. To act with discretion, to own up to our mistakes and failures that may have caused harm, and then to do better because we know better. So in this chapter 9 do-over of creation, this is what I think the editors and translators for this version saw in some of those original texts and interpretations that encouraged them to use that dominion piece. It's not enough just to fill the earth, but to care for the wildness and places of non-human creatures, of forests and rivers and deserts and oceans. This is the real context of the first rainbow covenant. To be aware and concerned with all that is in all the world. Not these self-centered fill and use and throw it away disposable lives we can be tempted toward. God's covenant reminds us that no one is above the need for forgiveness and second chances, too. That from our original state of belovedness, we are living into a gift of life, a gift that everything that surrounds us is also living into. That belovedness includes God, who is willing to admit that they have caused harm. Can we possibly say that we are not to admit the same? The church has been used for thousands of years to cause harm, and even today is used in that same way. And yet, there are churches like this one right here that admits that history and accepts the past as a catalyst for a better way tomorrow, for protecting more rights and more lives, for making wholeness and affirmation accessible to more people, for accepting that the trans and non-binary community has been hurt by the wider church in ways that we may not yet be aware of, that trans kids just want to grow up and are not seeking privileges beyond that of other children, that queer people have for generations pushed the boundaries to create a more just world for those we have not even contemplated. And that making the statement, We invite everyone to experience God's love here on its own isn't enough. An honest welcome begins as our open and affirming statement printed on each week's bulletin says, recognizing there are those who have known the pain of discrimination in the church and society, we invite. We take back the rainbow as a covenant and take it seriously what God offered Noah and all flesh of all generations. A chance to accept responsibility and a place to grow from there on. The UCC Open and Affirming Coalition materials this week offered a theme of we shall not be moved, rooted in love, justice, and affirmation, which I'm sure you could hear in some of our prayers this morning, based on that text from Jeremiah. A statement to be fed in community by our connections to each other and to God, who will be with us even when times are hard. And what a theme for a time such as this. We shall not be moved from the values of our community to love the world around us. We shall not be moved from the need to create circles of trust and care inside and outside this building. We shall not be moved from claiming our Judeo-Christian heritage as a wellspring of affirmation and support. Though the attempt to reframe Pride Month or affirmative stances of the church continues to plague our culture and history and nation, the rainbow is a reminder that God loved our everything. And God will love your everything, no matter what. This is not a simple life, that of the rainbow covenant. This is a rainbow born from hard work. This is a rainbow that knows the cost of living into God's mission and vision. The cover of this week's bulletin is a reminder of what the rainbow can stand for. It's not cheap, this creation and connection with the rainbow. We find a rainbow in the crush of water mixing and falling and crashing down upon the rocks below into mist. A bright moment of color created by water droplets and light at the end of a long journey. When we baptize into community, we drop water onto foreheads and remember our journeys, our hard times when it felt like we fell. But we join with other water droplets and look for the light of the divine to show and sparkle and shine and become a prism through us. We shall not be moved, and we shall not stop loving this world, this earth, and all of God's peoples for all generations. Amen.